everyone, welcome back to another Afternoon Tea with Helen. And as before, remember to subscribe, remember to comment, and remember to share. Today we're going to have some amazing fun, I know we are. And as always, I'm drinking out of my Royal Doulton cup and saucer. And I noticed my guest has his cup and saucer also, but he's got a royal one. Oh my goodness, and I love that, you know. So without further ado, Clive, where did you get that? How did you manage to get a royal cup and saucer?
You know, it's a funny story. There was an old wooden house on Fillmore Street, west of Federal, that actually used to be they used to have winter classes for snowbird children. And my real estate attorney told me that it was for sale, and they had a big yard sale, and apparently they were huge Brit fans, Anglophiles, I think they're called. And she had all this cool English stuff, including, I even have some other King George up there and Queen Victoria. And so I scarfed all those up when I was in there.
And what about the amazing T-shirt?
Yes, well, I'm a biker, and this is biker Queen Elizabeth. Because I want to show you, this is Queen Elizabeth on a motorcycle.
I know, I've seen her. Yeah, because she was a
motorcycle.
Yeah, she was
on the bike with her.
Well, she was in a mechanic. She was a mechanic
Yes.
in World War II. Yes, exactly.
She did work hard for the war effort.
What makes you be a person that, because you live in Florida, in the US, so what is it that you have this affinity for the royals in the UK?
My father's British and came to this country when he was 12 years old, and I grew up with a lot of the British traditions and Christmas with the Christmas pudding and the crackers. And my grandfather used to have a lot of people over, and there was a lot of people. He worked at the High Line, so there was a lot of foreign people working at the High Line. We had French Canadians and Australians because he worked for the Australian Tote, which is the company that installed the betting machines in the High Line when they opened in '53. So I grew up in kind of like that British, you know, influence. And my parents divorced when I was very young. I was about 7 years old. So our void got filled with spending a lot of time at our grandparents' house. So I have more of a British influence in my upbringing than I do an American influence. And so and I was very close to my grandmother, and she lived to be 101. And I think that's part of the reason I have such an affinity for them.
Wow. So how long have you lived in Florida?
How long have I lived in Florida? I was born at Broward General.
See, one of the original Floridians.
An
And you hardly ever get them. And this is why I was so excited to interview you. You were on my list before you contacted me because you are one of the original Floridians. And one of the things that I love about you is the fact that you are passionate about everything about South Florida, which is where we live. I don't know if you're all of Florida, but at least South Florida, and the history and the buildings and everything about it. And I know you're part of the Historic Association. What excites you about that? What is the reason you got involved in all of that?
I think I've always been interested in old buildings. My great aunt lived in a neighborhood in Fort Lauderdale called Rio Vista. And I don't know if you've ever driven through Rio Vista, but it's one of the earliest neighborhoods in Fort Lauderdale. And as a child driving there, I remember looking out the window and seeing these, because back then, you're talking 73, a lot of these original houses were still in Rio Vista. So when I was paying attention, looking out the windows, and I was just fascinated by these houses that were so old. And at that time, they were only 50 years old, but to me, that was ancient. And my grandmother, my great aunt had a house that was built in the teens, and it had 2 fireplaces. And as a child running through that house was amazing. And then my father's interested in history. And then as I grew up, I just got even more interested in the history of South Florida, and then all of Florida mostly. But, you know, it just kind of grows because South Florida's Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade, and even the Keys. So I don't delineate between the counties or the cities. I like it all.
So, and you're part of the Historic Association. So what is their purpose? What are they meant to be doing?
They are collectors, preservers of Hollywood history, and educators. So they were founded, I believe it was 1973, and they're located at the Hammerstein House. If you've never been, they're open on Sundays in the winter time. Don't quote me on the exact schedule. I think it's the first Sunday every month. And they really are a depository for all the historic artifacts and information, and also records of buildings that we still have standing, and then records of buildings that have been unfortunately demolished. And we are so unique as a city in South Florida because we are a historic city, because we were founded in 1925 and Joe Young got here in 1922. There wasn't anything really going on. So we are so lucky to have a planned community at that time and still have a lot of our original buildings still standing, especially in downtown. What makes us really unique is that the downtown Hollywood district is on the National Register as a intact historic district. There's no other city in the entire state of Florida that enjoys that designation. And we are really close and even teetering, I would say, to losing that one and only demolition designation with the loss of the Great Southern, the potential loss of the bank building. We got a demolition permit for another building. I feel like we are losing our way, and I think a lot of people come to Hollywood because they're attracted to that historic, quaint charm. And I feel like, you know, we're starting to gentrify, and I don't want to see the city kill the golden goose that laid the golden egg for us. Finally, it separates us from so many other places, our historic nature. And I'm sad to see that go. And another big problem could be the Hollywood Beach Hotel. I know that there's somebody interested in buying this. This thing, when it was built, was the largest concrete hotel in Florida at the time. It's a sister hotel to the Hotel Nacional in Havana, or the Breakers in Palm Beach, or the Biltmore in Coral Gables. It was that 20s grandeur, and we still have it sitting at the base of Hollywood Boulevard as part of our historic skyline. And
I love that hotel. Yeah,
a lot of people do. So,
but it's one of the things I've noticed about coming from a British background, and you as well. I grew up in the UK, and all of our, you know, castles and buildings and things are from like the 1100s, the 1200s. Like, we've got hundreds and hundreds of years old buildings and things that are protected, and nobody can knock them down, and nobody ever wants to. So even when you're in downtown London, in the middle of London, you'll find all the modern buildings, but you'll still find the old building next door, which they're not allowed to touch. So we still keep all that. And I found that in the States, they don't seem to hold on to their heritage much.
no, and I think because it's so new, right? So that blows me away. And I've been to England many times, and it just blows me away walking around the streets of London and looking at history. You are actually in a space of history. When you're walking past that building that's been there for 500 years, imagine the people that have walked past that building or lived in that building. So you have to start somewhere. And since South Florida, and compared to the rest of the United States, it's a very new area. It was like the wild, wild west. So you've got to start somewhere. These are our pioneer structures. These are some of the first buildings that were ever built in our city by our city founder. I don't know how much more important those two things go in looking back. And if you don't save them now for the future citizens of this city, you're really doing a disservice to the people in the future. I don't know how many times I give a tour and I point out the buildings that are gone, like the Hollywood Beach Country Club, which was an amazing building. It had a retractable roof, a glass brick dance floor with lights underneath it to dance under the stars. People say, why did that? And I'm like, you know, because there's not enough outrage, because people are too busy. People do care about it, but they're busy living their lives. You know, they don't have the time to go to City Hall and make sure that the politicians do the right thing. At the end of the day, I think if you do respect it, it will go down in history as they did the right thing. And look at what we have today.
But do you think that it's because Florida is very transient? There's a lot of coming and going. There's not a lot of people that reside here for years and years and years and years that would get involved in that. It's usually, you know, it's being called God's waiting room. You know, it's elderly people. It's, you know, the younger people seem to leave. So do you think it's because there isn't that foundation?
I think that is a big part of it. We are still kind of transient. And you just said, oh my God, you were born here. I'm 54 years old. It's
Yeah.
amazing that, you know, people still say that to me. So yeah, there's not a lot of multi-generational roots in South
Right.
Florida that would, you know, bring out the importance of these structures for us, unfortunately.
So what else, apart from the history, what else in your life are you passionate about? What do you do for, I know you're involved in a lot of, you know, leisure activities and boating and all that sort of stuff. So what other things motivate you? What other things are you passionate about?
I'm passionate about being outside in general, and people tell me, especially my neighbors here, that I belong to the no shirt club. And if I could have done this
I
without a
know,
shirt on, I would have definitely done that.
I know. I'm glad you wore the shirt. Yes.
I'm very tan right now. I love the sun. I love the water. I have a boat, and I just love being outside in Mother Nature with the sun and working in my yard. I probably have hundreds of different varieties of crotons in my yard. I probably have over 500 different varieties of palm trees. I have a pond. I have a mangrove tree growing out of my pond, which is now bigger than my house. I picked up the seed on the beach one day and brought it home, and now it's huge. So I would say, you know, landscaping, boating, water, the beach, and the sun, and then my friends. I love to entertain, and I have a lot of Sunday suppers at my house, and I have a lot of parties for my family at my house. So, you know, I guess outside of my historical passion, my family and my friends, and then my, like you say, leisure activities are what I do. And I'm a late bloomer. I didn't really do much civically until just recently. So I'm 54. I probably started to get involved when I was like 48, 47. And I didn't do it for business because my business is pretty self-running and I don't need to do that to network. I just did it as another level of growing. I just wanted to evolve and start doing, you know, something to challenge me, I guess. I got too comfortable.
So what is your business?
Pest control.
And in Florida, what is the craziest pest control thing you've done?
The craziest I mean, I can't think of one specific thing, but when you're doing what I'm doing for 35 years, I'm a multi-generational exterminator. I mean, I have known people and their families for so long. I'm now their children's company.
Right.
So I think emotion. When you walk into somebody's house, they're not walking into your store. You're walking into their private space. And so I've seen a lot of emotion. I've seen a lot of crying where people have passed away, where kids have moved out, where there's been divorces. I mean, it's really like a window into people's personal life. And like the barber or the hairstylist, they want to tell you their thing. And sometimes I have to put my can down and I'm like, oh my God, you know, you're there for half an hour.
Right.
I mean, you know, there's been naked people, there's been people sleeping, there's been scaring. I mean, there's been all kinds of things. I mean, some things I can't say on TV.
No, I know. I interviewed.
I want to say some things, but I can't.
I know. I interviewed yesterday my girlfriend who is an author and a flight attendant. And I asked her the same question about flight attendant. I said, before you answer, make sure that it's for the general population because
I mean,
flight
I didn't break
attendants
any
are very
rules, but I didn't break any laws. Let's just say there might have been consenting adults.
Of course. So what we met when we did Leadership Hollywood.
Yes.
And Leadership Hollywood was a great thing. And you landed up from Leadership Hollywood onto the board of the Greater Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. And you also participate now as one of the leaders of Leadership Hollywood. What do you think?
Leader of the leaders.
Yes. So that you, what did you get from Leadership Hollywood? You know, if you were to advise, you know, a young person coming out of college or someone going into business or someone that's got their own business, what would you say about Leadership Hollywood to them?
You know, I would highly recommend it to anybody. And what's so fun about Leadership Hollywood is you have a high school student and then you may have a 70-year-old person. I mean, your classmates is amazing. And you go through this whole experience getting exposed to layers of government that most normal people would never, ever see. You learn about how government works. You get to, you know, meet all these department heads, the chief of police, the mayor, the firefighters. It is something that can really help you going forward in your career and making all these network connections. And then not only your class, but you're part of an alumni. Leadership Hollywood's the oldest leadership program in the entire state, 44 years and running. So you have 44 years of classmates, and it's just, and you don't really know what to expect until you get in it. And that's what happened to me. I'm like, I'm not sure I want to do this. My friend did it, and she said, I think I would like it. And I was not real enthused about it until I got in it and I graduated, and it was an incredible experience. And I did it at the right time, I think, too.
And you had a lot of fun. You put your whole self into it. You did get yourself into it so that you could grow from it. You know, you were involved. And I think when you join any of the programs for anything to do with a growth thing, you have to be able to insert yourself and show yourself and bare your soul and all this sort of thing. Because I know some people drop out and some people think it's too much for them. But if you stick through it, when you come out the other end, like you say, you make lifelong friends and you make lifelong connections as well. And you learn about what's going on in your community. And I thought that was the most amazing part when you go in to see the firefighters and you see what they do, and you go into the police head police place.
Headquarters.
What's it called? Yeah.
Headquarters.
When you go there and you find out what they do, and then you go into the courts and you see what they do, and you see what goes on. One of the best days for me was like tourism day, which we got to go underneath the hotels.
That was incredible.
Into the laundry rooms, into the kitchens, into all of these areas, and there's a whole other city under the hotel.
It was like being on the Walt Disney World.
Absolutely.
Like, wow.
And then, I know. And then you go to the port and you see, obviously, because Florida's big in tourism, and then you see the port and you saw how the ships come in and what the containers and all this sort of stuff. And I think, and especially for me as a coach, I found that it helped me help my clients because I could pass on knowledge without, to help them build their businesses. But from your perspective, you then became part of the leadership of Hollywood after that. Right, okay?
Yeah, after it was over, Marie tapped into my historical thing. So I started off just being chair of the historical day, and then I was asked to be on the steering committee, which I accepted.
Right, yeah. And you're also on the board of the chamber as well.
Yes.
Yes, as am I. We're both there together.
So that one little leadership thing, look at you better fasten your seatbelts, because if you take it seriously, you're going to be getting involved.
Exactly. So Clive, what gets you up in the morning?
Oh my God, the news. I'm a news junkie. I exhaust myself. I'm like, I just cannot wait to get the coffee and open up the iPad and see what's going on right now. And everybody's like, I can't watch the news anymore. I'm like, I cannot get enough of it. We are living in a pivotal time right now, and I can't get enough of the news because I want to know what's going on every second day. But then at the same time, when you read the news, you got to realize you got to read between the lines of what you're being fed, because it's very difficult to get really good information that's 100% accurate. So they're selling headlines, but then you also got to look for news too. So that gets me up, and I'm a runner. So getting up early in the morning and running to the beach and back is like, that's a spiritual thing for me that I'll never give up. I started running when I was 19 years old, and I'm still running today. So
how do you relax? You do all these things, you're involved in all of these things. So what do you do for relaxation?
I could sit on the beach for 5 hours and read. I can really chill. If I'm on the beach, I just got back from Sarasota, Siesta Key, and we were there for 3 days, and I tried to book another room, but we couldn't. They were booked, so we had to leave. So boating is another way. Once you get off the land and you float for like 6 or 7 hours, the feeling of floating, there's nothing like it. So you get off after that, and you're in a whole nother state of mind.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
martinis and beer don't hurt.
No, they don't. You're absolutely right. Okay,
Wine
well,
too.
yes, yes. I got a nice new bottle of wine last night that we had at the after hours. I thought was very good. However, Clive, it was amazing talking to you. I knew it was
Is
going
that
to be
it?
fun. People's time span
I
is
didn't
20
have
minutes.
long enough.
I
I
know.
didn't even say anything.
This is what happens, you know.
I want to do one.
Yeah, we do. We
We
want to
didn't even talk
do.
about my troubled childhood. I got a whole story there.
I know we didn't. We have to do that. But right now we're doing 20, 25 minutes because people's time span is about 20 minutes. Once we syndicate and all that sort of stuff, we'll be able to do hour long.
Okay.
So we have to work on that one. So everyone, Clive Taylor, his details will be below. You can see what about the Historic Society if you want to get involved and things like that to help save some of our buildings. If you live in Florida, if you live in elsewhere, it's not going to work. Subscribe to the channel, comment, share, let us know what it is that you like. And again, Helen Valabassalone, Afternoon Tea with Helen, signing off again.
May the good news be yours.